Ladies and gentlemen, the Expo, probably the most controversial card in Clash Royale history. Right here, for sure. And even though the Expo does have a win rate of above 52%, which is a pretty solid win rate, I am going to let my feelings get in the way of this ranking. Anyway, gamers, welcome back to another Clash Royale video. It's your boy Solar Fury, and today we're getting back on that tier list grind. And this tier list is going to be one that I've never done before, or one that I've never thought about doing until today. And so since I thought about it today, we're going to do it. And so as all of you can read by the title, and as all of you guys can see on the screen, we are going to be doing a tier list of all of the buildings in Clash Royale. This is going to be all spawners, all defensive buildings, and all siege buildings. We are going to be doing a tier list of just every single building in Clash Royale. And so if this is something that you do enjoy, then be sure to leave a like down below. I'd appreciate it. And also subscribe if you're new. I'd appreciate that as well. All right, so the first building that we're going to start out with is going to be the Barbarian Hut. So if this tier list were made like a couple of months ago, even like during November, then the Barbarian Hut would easily be an S tier, because at that point it was just about the best building in all of Clash Royale. But they nerfed its hit points, so that way it's much more susceptible to a lot of things, especially an earthquake spell and a rocket. I think it dies in one shot to a rocket of the same level. So the Barb Hut is going to go into the D tier. It has about a 1% usage rate. Its win rates aren't terrible. They're around 45%, but the Barb Hut has fallen extremely compared to where it once was. So we're going to put it into the D tier. And also, I guess one more thing I want to note is that the tiers aren't just based on like every card in Clash Royale. They're based for the buildings. So like an S tier building may only be like an A or a B tier in a normal tier list, including all cards. But in this tier list, an S tier building is, just an S tier building. And so I wanted to clarify that, because our first S tier building is going to be the Bomb Tower. So the Bomb Tower actually first rose to popularity quite a while ago. It was around October of 2019, and people were using the Bomb Tower a lot because that was when the Elixir Golem was first introduced. And the Bomb Tower actually did a solid job against the Elixir Golem because of the splash damage that it was able to do. And really, ever since it was used during that meta, people realized like, hey, this building is actually pretty good. And it really hasn't changed that much since then. A while ago, I believe it was June, they did nerf the lifetime of the Bomb Tower, and that hurt it for a little bit, but it rose back into the meta. And right now it is really popular in Minor Wallbreaker Cycle, and also in Splash Yard and some other decks around there. So the Bomb Tower, I think, is the best defensive building in the game, and so it belongs in the S tier if you ask me. Also, you guys should go follow me on Twitter. Take a look at the bottom left hand corner. We only have 34 followers. That's pitiful. You guys should go follow me, and I am actually active on there, so it won't be a waste of time for you, I promise. All right, so next up we have the cannon, and keep it real, that's an F tier. This card is straight dog outside of 2.6 hog cycle. Actually, you know what? Because it is good in that one deck, it actually is a usable card in that one deck, I'm going to put it in the D tier. I'm not going to be too harsh, all right? So the cannon, like I said, is really only good in 2.6 hog. It's not really used anywhere else. They've done a lot of buffs to the cannon, and also a rework or two here and there. But the cannon really just hasn't found a spot in Clash Royale outside of 2.6 hog. But in that deck, it is pretty solid. It's a 3 elixir building, so it does its job well in that deck. And so I'll put it in the D tier for that. Next up, we have the Elixir Collector. So the Elixir Collector is in another situation kind of like the cannon. It's really only good in one deck, and that is really any 3 Musketeers deck. And 3 Musketeers in itself isn't in that good of a spot right now. It really hasn't been ever since they nerfed the Musketeers' first attack speed. So I'm going to put the Elixir Collector in the D tier. Every now and then you'll see it in like a really strange Golem pump deck, or God forbid, an Expo pump deck, because those are still exist. But Elixir Collector, we're going to put it into the D tier, because really 3M is only where it belongs. And then next up we have the Furnace. I'm not giving any credit to the Furnace whatsoever. The Furnace is straight F tier. This is an awful card in Clash Royale ever since they nerfed it, so it basically gets literally almost completely destroyed by an earthquake. It's just, it hasn't been good. I believe it's the lowest used card in the entire game, and it has only like a 24% usage rate. So the Furnace is an absolutely terrible card. Don't use this card ever. It is the worst building in the entire game, arguably the worst card in the entire game. So I don't know why you would ever use this card, but if you do, then maybe switch it up a bit. Okay, so what I'm noticing right now is that, we have one S tier building so far, and then we have 3 D tiers, and we have an F tier. Now, of course, things are going to even out a little bit as we continue to go along, but I just think it's funny. It shows that buildings can be really polarizing in Clash Royale for sure. All right, so next up, we have my personal favorite building in Clash Royale, which is the Goblin Cage. Its usage rate right now is actually the same as the Bomb Tower, but it has a higher win rate, and for that, we are going to put it in the S tier along with the Bomb Tower. The Goblin Cage is honestly super slept on, even though it has a high usage rate and win rate. You know, no one talks about the Goblin Cage as being a good card in Clash Royale when it is arguably the best building in Clash Royale, either that or the Bomb Tower. This is such a good card. Like I said, it's my favorite building. I use it in my main deck. I play a Splash Yard variant where instead of using the Bomb Tower, I actually use the Goblin Cage. And the Goblin Cage is also good in some Royal Hogs decks. It's good in a lot of Balloon decks, actually, which is pretty cool to see. And this is just a super solid building that no one talks about. I don't get why. Let's put some more respect on the Goblin Cage, okay? And then we have the Goblin Hut right here. So this may be a little bit of a controversial opinion, but I don't think that the Goblin Hut is all that bad. Now, of course, it is not great. It is not great by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think it belongs in the D or F tier. I'm going to put the Goblin Hut into the C tier, okay? So it spawns a lot of Spear Goblins over its duration, which is nice, and the 3 Spear Goblins on its death can do work as well if you don't respond to them, especially in like Double Elixir and Triple Elixir and Overtime. If you can accumulate Goblin Huts and just that constant onslaught of Spear Goblins just applying constant pressure, that can do work in the grand scheme of a match. Now, sure, its HP may not be a lot, but it works really well in some certain situations, especially in a deck if you're trying to bait out poison spells. The Goblin Hut works perfectly in those decks because it almost dies completely to poison. So the Goblin Hut, I'm going to put it into the C tier. This may be a very controversial opinion, but it is an opinion that I have nonetheless, and I'm going to put it in the C tier. That's one thing about all the tier lists that I do that I'm worried about. I have some very controversial opinions, and while tier lists are some of my most liked videos of all time on this channel, they are also some of my most disliked videos on this channel because I guess some people don't know what an opinion is and they yell at me in the comments for having my own opinion. I don't know, but yeah, let's just keep going. All right, next up we got the Inferno Tower. The Inferno Tower is another one that I think is not totally terrible, okay? Again, not great by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not terrible. So we are going to put it right here into the C tier next to the Goblin Hut, okay? So really the only main deck that you see Inferno Tower in, like in meta decks, is going to be Log Bait. You will see it prevalent, especially in classic Log Bait. You'll see it here and there in some other decks, like if someone is playing that OG 3.0 Miner Cycle, you will see it there. That really is about it, but in those decks where it is, the Inferno Tower is not a bad card by any stretch of the imagination, so into the C tier it goes. All right, next up we have the Mortar, otherwise known as the Mortar. So Mortar is pretty good, you know, Mortar's, you know, it's a good card, definitely. I'm gonna put the Mortar in the B tier, okay? Mortar for the longest time wasn't actually that great, but as of late, over the past couple of seasons, I guess really dating back to the summer to keep it real, the Mortar has come back into the meta with the form of Mortar Bait. There was that deck that was going around that was really popular for a while, which had like the Skeleton Barrel, the Musketeer, and the Knight. You guys know what I'm talking about. And then more recently, there was a variant of Mortar that featured the Graveyard as well as the Cannon Cart and the Hunter. That deck I do not like playing against, but the Mortar is very solid in that deck. And right now, the Mortar actually has one of the highest win rates in the entire game at 57%. So I'm going to put the Mortar into the B tier, definitely an above average card and one of the 2 siege cards. We'll talk about the other siege card in a little bit. And then we have the card that pairs so well with that other siege card that we will talk about in a little bit, and that is the Tesla. All right, so the Tesla does pair with that Forsaken siege card very well in those decks, but it also can be used in log bait. You know, Tesla log bait is a thing. You'll see Inferno Tower more often in bait decks, but Tesla log bait for sure is a thing. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm actually gonna switch some things around a bit. I'm gonna put the Tesla in the B tier, and I'm actually gonna move the Mortar up into the A tier simply because of its win rate. I'm gonna put the Mortar into the A tier because its win rate is extremely solid. You guys can see the Mortar and the Tesla right here. They have the same usage rate right here, but the Mortar has a much higher win rate, and so because of that, I'm going to bump it up into the A tier. All right, then we got the Tombstone right here. So the Tombstone is good in Lava Hound. You know, you see it every now and then in Graveyard. But that's about it. Although again, like the Goblin Hut and Inferno Tower, it is solid at what it does in those decks. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it in the D tier. All right. It's not quite up to par with the Goblin Hut and the Inferno Tower, but the Tombstone is not totally garbage. Okay. So I'm going to put it in the D tier. I don't really have much to say about it, but we're going to put it in the D tier. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So the time has come. I have saved the most controversial for the last. All right. So we got the Expo right here. Ladies and gentlemen, the Expo. Probably the most controversial card in Clash Royale history. Right here, for sure. If you are not aware of the circumstances and things that go on in this channel, then you will know that this is a card that I have very strong opinions about. I think the whole Expo community has a bounty on my head because of some of the things I've said about this Expo. And by that, you can infer that I've said a lot of negative things about this Expo. I have made many videos and many comments regarding the Expo, talking about how much I absolutely hate this card and how much I want it to be deleted from Clash Royale. So when they reworked the Expo, I was extremely happy. You know, I was extremely happy when they reworked the Expo. I love seeing this card suffer. Right now, we can see that the Expo only has a 3% usage rate. That is exactly where it needs to be. Honestly, I would love it to be down here with the Mother Witch and the Furnace. I would absolutely love that. Normally, I like to keep my feelings out of these, but I'm going to keep my feelings in store for this ranking. So the Expo, we're not even going to rank it on this tier list. It doesn't belong on this tier list. The Expo belongs in the trash can. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm on my desktop right now. I have a PNG of the Expo, and I also have the recycling bin. This is exactly where the Expo belongs. It belongs nowhere else. So anyway, gamers, that's going to wrap it up for this tier list. If you guys did enjoy, I'd appreciate a like down below, as I said earlier. And also, as I said earlier, if you're new here, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe down below. But anyway, gamers, it's your boy Solar Fury signing off. Peace out, guys. Have a nice day.